Welcome to the movie. My name's Blaise.
And I'm James.
This week, we're talking The Sculptor. The movie is a show where we take something that's not currently a movie and we spin a movie out of it. So I'm going to be talking about The Sculptor. It's probably one of my favorite graphic novels. It comes from Scott McCloud, who wrote the book Understanding Comics. If you don't know Understanding Comics, it's probably one of the most popular comic book related, I guess, educational books about just teaching the art of comics and I guess necessarily how you would write a comic or, using the panels to your convenience and properly to convey a story. So Scott McCloud, authored this book about teaching comics, but he hadn't actually created, a graphic novel. So this was his long awaited graphic novel. And honestly, it fires on all cylinders. This book's it's probably a couple years old. I'm not exactly sure the date, but I read it a couple years ago and I just loved it. And I would say for the movie, this has been my little ace in the hole. I haven't let you know that I got a couple little things in my pocket when it comes to the movie. Little things that I've been saving. I'm waiting for this show. I'm waiting for me to run out of ideas, and then I just drop something that I'm like, all right, this is gonna be this week's episode. So, anyways, I'm talking The Sculptor. If you haven't heard of this story, it's basically about this artist named David, and he's given the ultimatum. He's struggling to create art, and death comes to him and says, I'll let you create anything you want with your hands for the next 200 days, and then I'm going to take your life. So David, he's feeling very suicidal, depressed, and he realizes as an artist, all he wants to do is create art that's going to last longer than his life.
Right.
He's wants to create something that lasts longer than ever, and people will always remember. So he takes death's offer, and that's where the story takes us. I don't want to spoil it. I want you guys to enjoy this book. I want you to pick this up for sure because it is one of the best graphic novels I've read. It's just such a great, complete story. And I'll just leave you with that plot there.
I'm hooked already.
Yeah, essentially he's creating art, but he realizes once he has the ability to create any art that he wants, he doesn't necessarily have the inspiration on what to create.
Right.
So he happens to find a muse. But after finding a muse, do you want your life back? That's kind of the moral quandary in the story. It deals a lot with being an artist and creating art. And it's just really interesting. I don't know. I just love this book. I think everyone should definitely check it out. But more importantly, a movie of this book would be incredible. Some of the sculptures that he creates using his hands, he could create anything. He could mold like buildings into sculptures. He could mold the concrete into like a massive anything essentially. So he creates these massive sculptures, and like the cops are even on him like, what is going on? Why is there this massive thing here and this building's now gone? So it's a great story, and I think it would just be such a cool movie of him going out at night creating these massive sculptures.
I imagine cool shots like just using, I hate to use an example from Paddington again, but the scene from the second one with the storybook, like I can imagine cool architecture scenes like that being created within his mind, but then also seeing it be created though within the story. Like I just imagine like that would be a cool look for the movie.
Definitely. And I think that's a great idea about where you're going is Paul King brought a great idea to Paddington. I'm not saying we should take Paul King for this movie. We've talked about where Paul King should go in his future endeavors. Maybe Corduroy.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But anyways, what I'm thinking is a director that we kind of haven't seen for a minute. And he created what I think, this is a very beautiful story. He created a very beautiful movie, something that was really successful. A lot of people loved. And then he did something that people didn't love. And now
Colin Trevorrow.
No, I'm kidding. And now, somewhat close, I guess. But prior to Colin Trevorrow's career, and now he did a movie this year. I don't know who saw it, or maybe it was last year. I didn't see it. He has an actor that he's constantly been working with. He doesn't really have much clout, but I think that this could be the perfect story for him. And I have to say that's Mark Webb.
Oh, cool.
Because Mark Webb, honestly, after 500 Days of Summer was like his opus, and like we just haven't got back there with his career. He needs something like The Sculptor that's beautiful. it has something that it's saying, but it's not overly preachy.
Right.
It's not overly dramatic. It's very lighthearted. I think that's what made 500 Days of Summer tick, was its lightheartedness. It's fun.
Right.
It's love, but it was still heartbreaking. And I think that this is exactly that. And this is perfect for him. And I say, you know, I know Mark Webb's not typically the writer like of a lot of his movies. So I would say maybe even get Scott McCloud to write this for him. I mean, he did a great job with the graphic novel, so maybe getting them to team up and create a reality of this could be awesome.
Totally.
So I like to think when we make a movie, you know, to take a director that maybe hasn't been noticed for his full potential. And I think that Mark Webb, after, you know, The Amazing Spider-Man, a lot of people did not like it, and that kind of like, I mean, it made his career at one point, but then it kind of broke it.
Right.
And I don't think he's going to get the opportunities that he got with that quite again, unless he goes out on a limb and makes something really from the heart.
Right.
And this is a story that has a lot of heart. So
yeah, I love the idea of bringing Mark Webb back. Just like what you said with 500 Days of Summer, I like brought Paddington, but I remember 500 Days of Summer really established that whole like just building aspect, like seeing what was in Joseph Gordon-Levitt's head. So I think that would look great, because just from what you described with the story, I really can't wait to see his version of like death, I'd say. Just to bring in a creepiness factor into like what sounds like a very beautiful, bright colored movie. And with 500 Days of Summer, even though it's a grim movie, like a grim like storyline, it had very such bright colors with the musical numbers and stuff. And
that's definitely something I could see with the Sculptor, is like bringing in that element. I think he really excels. I mean, he was a music video director before becoming a film director, and he's always been like a guy, like you can watch behind the scenes of his movies where he's playing music on set, like to get everyone in the mood. Like he's a very musically driven director. And I think bringing that element and that lightheartedness to this story, which it has a serious tone. It's very seriously about art, but it is very lighthearted at the same time. I think that it would just be, it's perfectly in his wheelhouse. And I know he's been taking more of a dramatic turn, probably since his life has kind of somewhat turned around after, you know, what happened with Amazing Spider-Man.
Right.
But I think he needs to get back to that lightheartedness. Get back to what made him huge. I remember 500 Days of Summer, when it hit the scene, was just such a huge like movie that people didn't expect anything, and just people loved it. Like bring a lot of those awesome elements, like you're saying with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's building this architecture in his head. That just reminds me of looking at the back of this book right
That's
here.
where I'm kind of getting it from.
So I mean, he's not the Sculptor's not an architect, but it still has that same sense of art. So
I definitely think you can also see like a really cool indie soundtrack with it as well. Not like so over the top like I remember with Amazing Spider-Man. It had like such big budget, and like Sony's like, oh, we need to get our Sony artists in this movie as well. But like just I remember like the soundtrack to 500 Days of Summer was very low key but fit the persona of the film, and definitely like that idea. What are some of the actors you imagine though?
Haven't actually necessarily thought of that. I mean, you could cast anyone. If I have to think of like somebody that I would like to see, maybe like a Justin Long, someone that I know that's a great actor, but just has still, they've gotten those roles before, but no one's noticed. Or
Scoot
maybe
McNairy's mine, where I'm just like, why doesn't this guy get more roles? I feel like
I would love to see Scoot in this. Yes, I want someone like that I know is a good actor, someone that I've seen in many things, but still is never ever given the light of day to have just a lead role in something that could, you know, make their career. Like they're, you know, a great actor. They're in a ton of stuff. Like Scoot's in a ton of things. Give him the lead again. He was great in Monsters. Like he's great in Search of a Midnight's Kiss, which no one's ever gonna see again, because isn't it a Blockbuster exclusive?
It's a Blockbuster DVD exclusive. So good luck finding it, because it doesn't have a Blu-ray release and it's not streaming anywhere.
Damn.
The struggle with that one.
So that's going to be it for this week of the movie, guys. Honestly, if you were at all intrigued in the story of the Sculptor, definitely go pick it up. Check it out. It's one of my favorite graphic novels. It's just, as an artist, it's such a great story about art, and definitely things that you think about. So go purchase this book. Go get it at your local comic book store. Go support them. Tune in next week to see what we're going to spin into the next movie.